Vince Gill was offered $1 million spotlight and the chance to front the biggest band in the world, but he looked Don Henley in the eye and said no. While most would sell their soul for an Eagles set list, Vince chose something much more valuable: his integrity. You have to understand the gravity of the room when this happened. We aren't talking about a casual conversation backstage at a county fair. We are talking about the inner sanctum of the Eagles, a band notoriously run like a Fortune 500 corporation, presided over by the iron-fisted Don Henley. This is a band where lawsuits fly faster than guitar solos, and where creative control is guarded like nuclear launch codes.
When Glenn Frey passed away in 2016, the music world assumed the Eagles were dead. The chemistry between Frey and Henley was the engine. Without it, the car shouldn't run. But when the decision was made to bring in Vince Gill, a country icon in his own right, the critics sharpened their knives. They called him a scab. They called him a hired hand. They said he was just there for the paycheck, a soft Nashville crooner stepping into the boots of a rock and roll outlaw. And then, in the middle of a sound check that could have changed his financial trajectory forever, Don Henley made him an offer that would have made any other musician salivate. Henley offered Gill the keys to the kingdom. He didn't just want Gill to sing Glenn's songs. He wanted to elevate Gill to full partnership status in the eyes of the audience. He wanted to blend their worlds. And Vince Gill, the so-called hired hand, shut it down.
To understand why this refusal is so shocking, and why it reveals a level of character almost extinct in the modern music industry, we have to peel back the layers of what it actually means to step into a dead legend's shoes. This isn't just a story about a set list. It's a masterclass in ego management, the economics of legacy, and the difference between being a star and being a servant to the music. Most people look at Vince Gill and see the high tenor voice and the 21 Grammys, but they miss the cold hard steel underneath. You don't survive 50 years in the music business by being a pushover, and you certainly don't survive it by grabbing every bag of cash thrown your way.
The context here is critical. By 2017, the Eagles were embarking on a tour that generated hundreds of millions of dollars. Every second on that stage is monetized. Every song played is a calculation. For a hired hand or a touring member, the goal is usually to claw your way up the hierarchy. You want your songs played. You want your face on the screen. You want the publishing royalties that come from a live performance on a global DVD release. So when Don Henley, the man who famously said the Eagles would only reunite when hell freezes over, approaches you with an opportunity to showcase your personal work on his stage, you say yes. You say yes, you thank him, and you deposit the check. But Vince Gill operates on a different operating system. To understand the no, we first have to look at the yes that never happened decades earlier. This wasn't the first time Gill looked a massive rock paycheck in the face and walked away.
Let's go deep into the first pivot point of his life. In the late 1980s, Vince Gill was struggling. He had a few minor hits, but he was broke. He was playing session work to keep the lights on, living that grueling Nashville grind, where you are only as good as your last 3 minutes of tape. Out of the blue, his phone rings. It's Mark Knopfler, Dire Straits. At that moment, Dire Straits was arguably the biggest band on the planet. They were filling stadiums worldwide. Knopfler didn't just want a session player. He wanted Vince Gill to join the band for a world tour. Do the math. A struggling country singer with a young family and mounting bills is offered a spot on a tour that would solve every financial problem he would ever have. It was a guaranteed winning lottery ticket. It was fame, fortune, and global domination. And Vince said no.
He told Knopfler, "If I do this, I'm admitting that I failed as a country artist. I'd be throwing in the towel on my own dream to go service yours." He chose the possibility of failure on his own terms over the guarantee of success on someone else's. That is the definition of betting on yourself. And it paid off. Shortly after, he released When I Call Your Name, and his career exploded. But that history is crucial because it proves that Vince Gill cannot be bought. Fast forward 30 years. He is no longer the struggling artist. He is a legend. But now he is in the Eagles, and the dynamic has shifted. He is the new guy. He is the target of every angry Boomer fan who thinks the band should have retired with Glenn. He walks onto that stage every night, knowing that half the crowd is skeptical. They are crossing their arms, waiting for the country guy to ruin Hotel California. This brings us to the moment of the refusal, the $1 million request.
It happened during a sound check. The band was running through levels, the stadium was empty, and the acoustics were raw. Vince Gill began noodling on his guitar. He started playing one of his own biggest solo hits, Whenever You Come Around. It's a beautiful, haunting ballad, a song that showcases his vocal range and his intricate fingerpicking. Don Henley was listening. He walked over, stopped the rehearsal, and asked, "What is that?" Vince told him it was just one of his old tunes. Henley, the man known for his rigid control over the Eagles brand, was floored. He looked at Vince and said, "We should do that. Let's work it up. Let's put it in the show." Pause for a second. This is Don Henley offering to displace an Eagles classic, maybe Take It Easy or Desperado, to let the hired hand sing his own country song.
From a branding perspective, this is worth millions to Gill. It exposes his solo catalog to the Eagles' massive global fan base. It validates him not just as a replacement, but as an equal. It silences the critics. It says, "I am not just a shadow, I am a star." And Vince Gill looked at him and said, "With all due respect, Don, I'd rather not." Henley was confused. He asked why. Gill's response is the philosophy that every aspiring leader needs to tattoo on their brain. He said, "I don't want to give these people one more reason not to like me. They didn't come here to hear Vince Gill songs. They came here to hear Eagle songs. I am here to serve the legacy of Glenn Frey, not to promote myself." This is the counterintuitive perspective that separates the greats from the goods. Most people think the way to win respect is to assert dominance. They think you have to show off, take up space, and demand the spotlight. Vince Gill understood that in this specific dynamic, integrity meant invisibility. He realized that the only way to win over the hostile audience was to show them that he respected the music even more than they did. By refusing to play his own hits, he was signaling to the audience, "I get it. I know I'm not Glenn, and I'm not trying to replace him. I'm just trying to help you hear these songs one more time." This refusal completely flipped the power dynamic. If he had said yes, he would have looked like an opportunist, using the Eagles as a vehicle for his own comeback. By saying no, he proved he was a steward. Let's break down the technical why of this decision, because it's a brilliant maneuver in social dynamics.
When you enter an established hierarchy, whether it's a legendary band, a new corporate job, or a family dynamic, the alpha move is rarely to challenge the existing structure. That creates friction. The true power move is to make yourself indispensable to the structure while removing your ego from the equation. Vince Gill adopted what we can call the service-first alpha model. Look at the musical technicalities of what he does on stage with the Eagles. When he sings "New Kid in Town," he doesn't change the phrasing. He doesn't add Vince Gill flourishes or country twang. He sings it note for note how Glenn Frey sang it. He dissolves his own artistic identity into the composition. This is incredibly difficult for a virtuoso musician. It takes more discipline to play simply than to play complexly. It takes more strength to hold back than to let go. By refusing Henley's request to play "Whenever You Come Around," Gill avoided the Van Halen effect. Think about when Gary Cherone joined Van Halen, or when other bands replaced lead singers and tried to force the new guy's material down the fans' throats. It almost always fails. It alienates the core base. It feels like a bait-and-switch. Gill protected the Eagles brand from itself. Henley, in his excitement, missed the mark. He thought the fans would love the musicality. Gill, with his high emotional intelligence, knew the fans would resent the intrusion. This brings us to the hired hand paradox. The title of this video calls him a hired hand, and technically, on the contract, he might be. But by refusing the perks of leadership, he earned the respect of a partner. There is a moment in the live show where Deacon Frey, Glenn's son, would come out to sing. Vince would step back into the shadows, playing rhythm guitar, smiling like a proud uncle. He wasn't fighting for screen time. And what happened? The audience fell in love with him.
Go read the comments on any video of the new Eagles lineup. You won't see people saying, "I wish he would sing his own stuff." You see thousands of comments saying, "Thank you, Vince, for saving this music. Thank you for doing it with such class. Thank you for not trying to be Glenn." He won the war by surrendering the battle for the spotlight. Let's look at a counterexample to see why this is so rare. Look at the situation with Fleetwood Mac when they fired Lindsey Buckingham and brought in replacements. It felt chaotic. It felt like a power struggle. The narrative was about the drama, not the music.
With the Eagles and Vince Gill, the narrative remained strictly about the songs. Gill's refusal to inject his own ego kept the ecosystem stable. The $1 million request wasn't just about money, it was a test of character. Henley tested Gill's ego, and Gill passed by showing he didn't have one that needed stroking. And here is the kicker, the ultimate irony of the story. By refusing to play his own songs to protect the legacy, Vince Gill actually revitalized his own solo career more than if he had played them. Fans who had never listened to country music watched this man serve the Eagles with such humility that they went home and Googled Vince Gill. They discovered his catalog on their own terms. They found "Go Rest High on That Mountain" and "When I Call Your Name" organically. They became fans of the man, not just the music, because they respected his integrity.
If he had forced the songs into the set list, it would have been marketing. Because he held them back, his discovery became a treasure hunt for the fans. So what is the lesson for us? Whether you are a creative, a business leader, or just someone trying to navigate a high-stakes environment, remember Vince Gill's refusal. When you are offered a spotlight that doesn't serve the greater mission, turn it down. When you have the chance to inflate your ego at the expense of the group's harmony, say no. Vince Gill refused Don Henley's request because he knew that true value isn't found in how loud you can sing your own name, but in how well you can harmonize with the legacy of others. He looked the biggest rock star in the world in the eye and said, "I'd rather not." And in that silence, he didn't just become a member of the Eagles, he became a legend who didn't need the Eagles to define him.
And that is why, when the history books are written, Vince Gill won't just be remembered as the guy who filled in. He'll be remembered as the guy who stood up by stepping back. If you think integrity is a lost art in the music industry, wait until you hear the story of how turning down a check saved a genre. Click this next video to see another moment where saying no was the most profitable decision a musician ever made. You won't believe who else walked away from the money.